Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see everybody here on this wonderful spring evening. Isn't it nice? Isn't it a relief? Sheesh, what a winter, right? But here we are, we made it. The weather is changing, and we're getting a breath of fresh air, and we're feeling ready to make it to the finish line of the end of the semester, right? Everybody's feeling good. So it's my honor today to introduce our speaker and to tell you very briefly a little bit about her role. Um, and to connect it to John Jay, I can't think of a better person to have at our college tonight than the public advocate. You all know that our motto at John Jay is that we are fierce advocates for justice. Well, what could be fiercer than a public advocate in New York City? I think you must have to be pretty fierce to be the public advocate in New York City. This position is a citywide position, which is first in line to succeed the mayor. The office, with its duties that are in the city charter, serves as a direct link between city government and the electorate. The office serves as a watchdog for New Yorkers. Essentially, this office should be a fierce advocate for social, economic, criminal, environmental, and all types of justice. The public advocate exercises her duties with the right to introduce and co-sponsor legislation in the city council, appointing members to various boards and commissions, filing legal documents, and serving on the committee which selects the director of the Independent Budget Office. Now, about 16 months ago, I introduced Letitia James, although I didn't know very much about her because I was brand new to John Jay myself. Um, I grew up in New York, but I'd been gone for many, many years. I don't think that there was a public advocate position of this type when I left so many years ago. But you might not know this, but I look to you as my role model. When I first saw Letitia James, I thought, here is a woman like me, African American like me, tall like me, and starting a big job and moving forth with courage into something that is new and maybe a little bit unknown. And I thought, I'm going to draw courage from your leadership. And so every once in a while, Tish, is that what you're called sometimes? May I call you Tish? Every once in a while, I'll hear something on the news about something that you're up to. You're out there fiercely advocating for justice. And I say, go ahead, girl, you get them. And I say, she's doing okay in her job. I'm doing okay in my job. And that's what we have to do. That's what this organization is about, right? Is understanding the experiences of women in the public sector, but also understanding that we draw strength from each other, that we can look to each other for courage and commitment and for networks and for love and for appreciation and all the things that we need to be successful in whatever field we work in. So let me take just a couple of more minutes to introduce our speaker. On November 5th, 2013, Letitia Tish James was elected as the 4th public advocate for the city of New York. She took office on January 1st, 2014, as the first woman of color to hold a citywide office in our city's history. Wow, how is that possible? The first. That's incredible. I'm even more impressed. I have more, I'm getting more courage. A former state legislative staffer, public defender, assistant New York State Attorney General, and New York City Council member, Tish hit the ground running. She has energized the Office of the Public Advocate and took on issues involving grand jury reform, police body scanners, or cameras, I'm sorry, community relations, campus sexual assault and sexual victimization on Rikers Island, LGBTQ discrimination, foster care, and many more issues. She has personally represented unaccompanied minors in immigration cases and has appealed Judge Garnett's decision not to unseal the grand jury minutes in the Eric Gardner case. A CUNY graduate, she is a fierce advocate for justice. Welcome, Honorable Letitia James.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Oh, you can do better than that. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. First, I have to give a shout out to someone who I had the honor and privilege of working for in the state legislature, someone who is erudite, intelligent, brilliant, and I know all of you know because he happens to be a professor here. He's a former member of the state legislature, Assembly Member Dan Feldman. Give him a round of applause. Where is he? He is well-versed and well-written, and I really thank him for all of the support over the years. And of course, someone who I call my girlfriend, Mindy Bockstein. Where's Mindy? Mindy. Mindy and I, come on, Mindy. Mindy and I used to work together in the Attorney General's office, and we used to commiserate together in Albany. She was working for the Assembly member at the time. I was working for another member. We would, just at late hours in the state legislature, she and I would just compare notes, and it's an honor and a privilege to call her my friend and to know that she is now a individual in her own right who has gone on to do great things, and particularly for this wonderful institution. Thank you, Mindy, for your friendship. First, I want to extend my thanks in his absence to President Jeremy Travis, and to all of you who are here, and for that wonderful introduction. So she she said that she usually says she applauds me whenever she finds out I'm engaging in things, or whatever I'm challenging, or whenever I'm speaking truth to power. I was sort of outraged a little while ago, and I had to be calmed down. I went to a hearing at the City Council this afternoon, and I was going to basically give some testimony in regards to workers who have been victimized by subcontractors and contractors in the city of New York, individuals who have been victims of wage theft. But when I got to the hearing, I heard more than just wage theft. I heard contractors, young men and women who work for contractors all throughout the city of New York, who are iron workers. And this company was misclassifying their title, and they were being paid less than what they were entitled to. And they were being paid barely the minimum wage. And they were professionals. And most iron workers are members of the middle class, and a lot of the iron workers are men. But some of these iron workers that I met today were women who not only were victimized by wage theft, but were also sexually assaulted. And so I was really outraged earlier, and I had to let the administration know my true feelings. And so that's what the public advocate does. It's the city's watchdog. It provides crucial and critical oversight on city agencies and investigates issues on behalf of everyday New Yorkers. Another issue which you might find relevant, this is just today. I received a call from a reporter maybe an hour ago. And the question, there's a report that is coming out by the Inspector General of the City of New York. And the Inspector General wants to look at lawsuits that have been filed by individuals against NYPD and use the lawsuits to reform NYPD. And I said, no, that's not enough. We need to look at other ways to reform NYPD. One, some of these lawsuits shouldn't be settled on the spot. Two, we should look at cases within the district attorney's office, cases that are DP, declined prosecution, cases that are dismissed as a result of violations of the Fourth Amendment, CCRB complaints, and not just litigation that has been filed and/or settled by the law department of the City of New York and/or the Controller's Office. And so that's obviously a study that all of you could look at, and this report will be coming out this evening. It will probably be in the newspapers tomorrow in the Daily News, but it's an issue that all of us have been talking about all throughout this country, as well as in the City of New York. How can we improve police-community relations in the City of New York? Since I've took office barely 16 months ago, we have handled over 11,000 complaints in our office. And often these New Yorkers have exhausted every other resource. You see, our office is the office of last resort. They oftentimes go to their local elected officials, and oftentimes they try to navigate the bureaucracy of government. But when all else fails, they come to the Office of Public Advocate because we tend to be on the ground. And I tend not to believe my own press releases, and I tend not to be caught up in my title. As someone, I was on the elevator earlier, and someone said, I don't know if it's a proper protocol to get onto the elevator with the public advocate. And I was like, what? Get in here. And I particularly told her to get in here because she had a sandwich. And I said, come on. So, you know, I don't really, I recognize that much has been given to me and therefore much is expected. And I also recognize that it's really critically important, if you really want to know the issues of New Yorkers, and if you want to know what's plaguing or some trends in the city, you have to be on the ground, and you've got to be in touch with individuals on the ground, and you can't be in this, you know, ivory. Well, I'm in a university, so I guess I can't say that. You've got to be in the communities. White ivory towers, I'm not going to say that, but you've got to be on the ground and in the communities. And so often these New Yorkers have exhausted every other resource. They frequently face income or language barriers, and they don't know where else to turn for help. Now, our office is small, but it was even smaller. Under the first public advocate, who knows the first public advocate? Raise your hand. Very good. Who was the mayor at the time? Giuliani. So you see the inherent conflict, the Democrat, Republican. And so, and the office, at the time, the public advocate, Mark Green, you know, issued a lot of freedom of information requests, was very critical of the Giuliani administration. It was a thorn in his side. And so Mayor Giuliani cut his budget because the budget is controlled by the mayor and the city council. It's not an independent budget. And so the mayor cut his budget to basically nothing. And then the next public advocate was who? Who? And who was the mayor? Mayor or mayors? Bloomberg / first it was Giuliani. She had a term, and Giuliani, and then Bloomberg. They didn't like her either, so they cut her budget even more. So she had she had maybe 6, 7 staff members, if that many, maybe 10. And as you know, she joined with me and the current mayor, Mayor de Blasio, as we stood up against Mayor Bloomberg when he sought to extend term limits. And then the third public advocate was Bill de Blasio. And of course, the mayor at that time was Mayor Bloomberg. And who was the speaker at that time? Who? Quinn. And so there was a natural conflict, natural rivalry, because they were all running for mayor. Right? And so they basically said, oh, we're really gonna cut his budget because, one, the likelihood, we don't want him competing against Speaker Quinn for mayor, and also because he was critical of the Bloomberg administration. And lastly, as you know, he and I challenged the mayor on the extension of third third term, as well as a wide range of other issues. So the Office of the Public Advocate is not independent, and it's always been small. Well, because the mayor of the city of New York was the former public advocate, and because he is an ally, but every now and then I've got to take my responsibilities very serious, and I criticize him and I provide oversight. He nonetheless has increased the budget, because for him not to increase the budget, obviously, he would be hypocritical. So I remind him of his promise to increase the role of public advocate. And so even if I criticize him, I'm saying, okay, I criticize you, but you can't cut my budget because you know I will be on the front steps of City Hall criticizing you, and you don't want that. So you've got to increase the budget of the Office of Public Advocate. Now, I would like for the Office of Public Advocate to be independent, just like the Office of Budget. The Office of Budget is determined by 1% of the entire budget, and it's not subject to political whims. And that's how the Office of Public Advocate should be treated. But until such time, it's subject to the whim of the mayor or the city council. So they did increase my budget, so we now have 40 members of the Public Advocate's office. But we're going to continue to advocate that the office be independent, and that it be tied to the budget, and that it receive maybe 1 or 2% of the total budget, and that it not be subject to the approval of the mayor and/or the city council, so that the Office of Public Advocate can be independent and can exercise its role to be the voice of the voiceless and for those who have historically been ignored. So the issues range in our office, the 11,000 constituent complaints that we have resolved. They vary from a family in Manhattan who has no heat in their apartment, to a mother in Brooklyn who is unable to get her child special needs, or even young people in the Bronx who've contacted our office who have been stopped and frisked multiple times. And so basically, we use litigation. I've changed the Office of Public Advocate. As an attorney, I recognize the importance of litigation, so I've hired a number of attorneys. We have the ability to introduce legislation. I'm an ex officio member of the City Council. If you can't sleep at night, you can watch me on Channel 74 as I preside over the City Council. Forget warm milk, I'll put you to sleep in a minute. So I introduce legislation and preside over the City Council, attend City Council hearings, have some input, but I do not have a vote. That was removed in the charter by Mayor Bloomberg. And then last but not least, we have the ability to advocate and/or agitate those in government. And so we fight against all forms of injustice in the Office of Public Advocate, and we basically use the resources that we have in our office, and also the law to correct the wrongs in city government. And just to give you just a few examples of how we've done that, we are petitioning for stronger rules against sexual assault on Rikers Island. We are petitioning the Board of Corrections to create enforceable rules to crack down on sexual victimization on Rikers Island. Rikers Island has the highest reported rates of sexual victimization compared to jails nationwide. We have federal regulations protecting inmates against sexual victimization that are virtually unenforceable because some loopholes in the law. And these new rules will make sure our most vulnerable inmates have the humane basic protections every person deserves. We introduced the New York City Safety Act to provide city resources to individuals on college campuses to strengthen education, prevention, and response to on-campus sexual and domestic violence, as well as boosting the reported mechanisms for survivors. What I heard from students all throughout the city of New York is that college campuses were underreporting sexual assaults, and so it was really critically important, one, that we give voice to their campaign, and two, that we provide city resources to address their issues. And the truth is that 1 in 5 college victims is a victim of sexual assault. 1 in 5. And we know that these aren't just statistics. We have met these women. There's one woman from Columbia University, as most of you read, is walking around the city with a bed, a mattress. It's a physical symbol of her abuse, and she has visited us quite often. These survivors of sexual assault have been failed by a system meant to educate and protect them. When you send your student off to college, you do not think, the last thing that you want to think about is sexual assaults. But what we have heard is that 1 in 5 college women, again, are victims of sexual assaults. And ending this horrifying common statistic starts by working together to strengthen our existing programs and services. Over the last several months, I've met with many students and survivors of sexual assault, representatives of rape crisis centers, advocates working to combat sexual assault, and leaders of city agencies. And we must confront college sexual assault through a meaningful and unwavering commitment to education, survivor services, and justice. I did not know that there were not any rape crisis centers in the borough of Brooklyn and/or the Bronx. And so we have raised those issues to the city council, as well as to the mayor of the city of New York, and we are urging that they correct that and they provide funding in this year's budget to provide services, not only to create sexual rape crisis centers in those 2 boroughs, but also to extend those services to students as part of our effort. So let me see your nails, ladies, or men. When was the last time you got your nails done? Looks lovely, looks lovely. Any men? None that you want to show. Okay, fine. So we expose the dangers of nail salons and are pushing for more inspections so we can all get a safe manicure. Nationwide, nail salons are a $7 billion industry in New York City alone. $7 billion. And it is estimated that there are 2,000 businesses licensed to practice nail specialty. But we all know that there's this toxic trio of chemicals that are found in many nail products that have been linked with reproductive harm, asthma, and cancer. And currently, city government is not responsible for regulating salons for cleanliness and/or safety. That responsibility lies in Albany, in the Secretary of State's office, not even the Department of Health, Secretary of State. And how many inspectors do you think we have in the city of New York compared to the number of salons? Anyone want to, how many? Good guess. Okay, she's close. There's 27. 27. There's almost 5,000 salons throughout the state, and there are only 27 inspectors assigned to this work. When was the last time any of your salons were inspected? Does anyone know? Are there any signs posted? Does anyone know? Signs posted? No. Right. You seen signs posted about inspection? Okay, so we should all go to her salon and her salon. Because most of the salons I know, there have not been salons inspected. And although I want all of you to be safe, and I want all customers to be safe, what about the young ladies who work there? Most of them are immigrants. Most of them, don't have limited English. And so the question is, are they aware of this toxic trio? Are they aware of the safety issues? Is anyone advising them? Is anyone reaching out to them? And so that's an issue, that's a report that we released. And we have legislation pending in the city council, and we have met with the Secretary of State with regards to increasing the numbers of nail salons. And I'm sure the assembly member would probably know that obviously this was not a priority in the state legislature, because most of the individuals in the state legislature are who? Men, yeah. But if he were in the state legislature, we would probably get it done. So obviously it continues to be a concern. Air circulation in some of these salons is a concern. How to handle these chemicals are a concern. Posting information is a concern. And so we are focused on that issue. We are also protecting youth aging out of foster care. A childhood in the foster care system should not warrant an adult life of poverty and homelessness, dependence on welfare or prison. Yet all too often it does. And there's an urgent need to track foster youth aging out of the system so we know what happens to them and they don't simply get lost in a cycle of homelessness and poverty. I've introduced legislation which was signed into law, our first law that we were able to get passed, which will provide crucial data and it's a step in the right direction. Crucial data necessary to ensure that youth aging out of foster care have access to the support and resources that will prevent homelessness and other lifelong challenges. In the past, individuals, young people aging out of foster care were just given a Metro card, a couple of $100s. They were not given the support services necessary to address the issue. And so what we are trying to do is work with housing advocates, work with individuals to provide them with supports, and also track their success so that we can determine whether or not there's any trends happening and whether or not we should adjust services in the city of New York. I know that in New York City, the #1 issue that most people are facing is the crisis in affordable housing, right? And we are working every day to make sure that every single New Yorker has a safe and affordable home. And I don't know whether or not you saw me recently stand with the Brooklyn District Attorney, where we arrested one of the worst landlords in the borough of Brooklyn. We're a landlord in Williamsburg, very hot, trendy neighborhood, had allowed individuals to enter into apartments at late hours, had given them keys, and they went in and they destroyed the kitchens and the bathrooms of these rent-stabilized apartments. He then had men move into these apartments, and these men had pit bulls. And they harassed these tenants, who were mostly women with children. There were rodents in the apartments. These individuals were threatening these young ladies, and he was not correcting conditions at all. And some of these women had to take their children to the local McDonald's to wash, to brush their teeth. And their cases were languishing in housing court for months on end. And these tenants had gone to every single agency. And so we launched, we revamped the worst landlords list, because Bill de Blasio, our mayor, former public advocate, he created the watch list. But now our worst landlord watch list now includes over 6,000 buildings and over 5,000 landlords, which you can look up at our website. And most of these buildings, these landlords, are in gentrifying neighborhoods like Williamsburg. And the watch list details the most negligent, that's a nice word, they're slumlords in the city. And it's based on information obtained from the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, constituents, and others citywide. And in the past, HPD and every city agency, they just issued civil fines against these landlords. And for them, the landlords, it was just the cost of doing business. They would pay the fines and they wouldn't correct the conditions. Well, we had a conversation with the district attorney and other district attorneys, but the Brooklyn district attorney decided that it was time to take action. And the district attorney of Brooklyn decided to arrest these two landlords. And I was happy to stand with him, because this landlord in question had been on our watch list and had previously been on Mayor de Blasio's watch list in 2010. And so I was glad to finally get some action, because many of these individuals are on the worst landlord list are repeat offenders. And many of them believe that they are above the law. And a lot of the tenants, like I indicated, mostly women with children, a lot of them are senior citizens. Another example is a Miss Johnson. She's a tenant in a building in East Harlem. She is one of 2 tenants in her building, and she came to my office with complaints that she and her fellow tenants had been harassed for years. We learned that the landlord was doing conversion construction work on the building. He was trying to turn 6 apartments into 15. And he was using a permit. He filed an instrument, a document within HPD, saying that there was no individuals living in the building, when in fact Ms. Johnson and her children were living on the top floor. So he filed a false instrument, and it's illegal, but he continued to do construction work. And so we visited Ms. Johnson a couple of weeks ago, and not only was the permit obtained under false pretenses, but the deed stated that the owner would remove all housing code violations and that the property would be preserved for 20 years. But the reality is that Ms. Johnson was living in this building. The reality is that she had children. The reality is that he was just making it difficult for her to remain, and he was just engaging in this pattern and practice of harassing tenants. And when we visited Ms. Johnson, we were able to get a stop work order based on that false instrument that had been filed. We also brought his case, the case of Ms. Johnson and this landlord, to the attention of the district attorney in Manhattan, and we hope we will get some action there. But Ms. Johnson went to a number of elected officials, a number of agencies, and unfortunately did not get any relief. And it's funny, when we visited Ms. Johnson, when we showed up one day, all of a sudden the landlord showed up, and he had 10 workers. And he said, "Oh, we're here to fix the apartment. We heard you were coming." And I was like, well, it's too little too late. But what was interesting is that when I started speaking to the workers, he was not paying them minimum wage. He was not paying them prevailing wage. In fact, he was violating their rights, and so they joined our cause. And so it was one big happy party. So along with MFY Legal Services, we successfully filed a lawsuit against the landlord. The Department of Buildings revoked the construction permit, and Ms. Johnson can stay in her apartment. Listen, I ran for office because everyday New Yorkers don't have the luxury of fancy lawyers and lobbyists. And as public advocate, I wanted to use the law as a tool for change. And I went to law school because I read a book called Simple Justice, and was influenced by the work of the great minds of individuals such as Thurgood Marshall, our first African-American Supreme Court Justice, and because of the civil rights struggle. And so I've used all of these experience and skills to advocate for everyday people who are committed to making our city equitable and a place of opportunity for all. I've been also working with individuals who are still living in horrible conditions, individuals who unfortunately lost their homes as a result of the Sandy hurricane. And so we will be joining them this Saturday as the entire office visits some families on Saturday, to volunteer, to assist those families, and to bring government to their doors. It's also it's also an honor to serve as the public advocate, but it comes with deep responsibility to empower women and to inspire a new generation of leaders, particularly female leaders. Since this is the inaugural Women in Public Service event, I want to take a moment to speak to you about how we can do this. We need to uplift women from poverty. The feminization of poverty is real, and all too many women live and work in pink-collar jobs in the service industry that leave little or no opportunity for upward mobility. You know, when I ran for office in public advocate, I just decided I could have run for re-election as a city council member. I had a seat. I think I was doing well. I was confident that the members of my district were going to re-elect me, but something said, you know, perhaps I should take a chance. And I remember the quote that Shirley Chisholm once said. She said, "Someone had to do it." And that's why she ran for president, and I decided, what the hell, let me run for public advocate. And what I discovered is that raising funds is hard, particularly from women, when most women are in service industry jobs. But thank God we have in New York City this campaign finance structure. And this campaign finance structure allowed me to take $25 from women and turn it into $125 through this matching system. Because when I ran for office, I was outmatched in terms of funding. My opponent had outspent me by millions of dollars. I had thousands, he had millions. And so campaign finance system is a great means to level the playing field and to equalize the system. And also because it removes the corrupting influence of corporations. And I do know that the campaign finance system in the city of New York allows women and allows people of color to run for office, and regular people not with deep pockets, or people who are tied to Wall Street, or people who know individuals from major corporations, or people who don't have families who are, you know, who are of wealth. And that's why I ran. But I also ran because I really wanted to make a difference. And I know that women hold up the sky, but there's a lot of women who are living in poverty. So in addition to passing pay equity, we also need to pass paid family leave in Albany. It's an absolute disgrace that the United States is not one of the 185 countries that guarantee paid family leave for their citizens. And unfortunately, we know that Congress is reticent to act on this issue, so it's up to Albany to do right by New Yorkers. The Assembly passed the paid family leave last month, and I've called on the Senate to do the same thing. We also need to raise the wage. I've stood with fast food workers, and I know that most people think there's a stereotype that fast food workers, for the most part, are teenagers. It's not true. The average worker in McDonald's or Kentucky Fried Chicken, these fast food restaurants, are women with children. Almost 2/3 of Americans who work in jobs that pay minimum wage are women. This is an area where government and the private sector must work together. And I was so proud to stand up to employees even as powerful as McDonald's, where the CEO of McDonald's makes $1.something million and his lowest paid worker is still only making minimum wage. And a lot of the fast food workers, if you think, it's not an issue that I care about, well, the vast majority of fast food workers are on the dole. What do I mean? They rely on public assistance because they can't make ends meet, your tax dollars. They rely on food stamps because they can't make ends meet, your tax dollars. They live in our shelters, subsidized by what? Your tax dollars. That's why you should care about this issue. This issue, we are supporting companies that make millions, if not billions, and it's fundamentally unfair that we are subsidizing their workers. And that's why we all need to demand that they raise the minimum wage. Because this is not just a women's issue. It's a fairness issue. Because when you hurt women, again, vast majority of women who are paid minimum wage are women. Vast majority of workers who are paid minimum wage are women. When you hurt women, you hurt the economy. When you hurt women, you hurt families. And when you hurt women, you definitely hurt children. And so we need to raise the wage. So I'm sorry if I inconvenienced some of you last week when we blocked the streets and down on Fifth Avenue and 57th Street. I'm sorry that, I gave a speech down there and they were yelling and screaming and roaring. I'm sorry. But sometimes we've got to be inconvenienced and we've got to recognize and see the issue for what it is. We also need to pay real attention to childcare. Single mothers and families should not have to choose between putting their child in daycare or going to college. We need more support for our neediest families through Priority 7 vouchers to ensure that every family has access to safe and quality childcare to just our childcare centers. We need to pay real attention to the basic quality of life concerns for women, children, and families. And we should not have to fight to make sure that our children are fed during the school day. We led a fight in the Office of Public Advocate for universal school lunch. What's universal school lunch, you ask? In the city of New York, if you are a child of poverty, if your family earns below a certain income level, you are entitled to free breakfast and free lunch. The problem is that individuals, these children who were getting these cards were being bullied. People were making fun of them. They were stigmatized. They had a scarlet letter, those kids. And in some schools, they had separate lines for the children. And so some children just didn't eat. And so to remove the stigma of poverty, my proposal to the mayor and to the city council was remove it. Just feed all children. Rich kids, poor kids, middle-income children, it doesn't matter. Feed them all. And when we did the numbers, it really didn't cost us that much. And so the city council and the mayor decided to compromise, and we decided to do a pilot program in middle schools. We left out K to 5 in high schools, because high school kids, they're just, teenagers. And so we're feeding all children in middle schools in the city of New York. The mayor and the city council adopted that proposal. I'm glad to say that our office had a lot to do with it. And now, we hope to expand that to K through 5, but now the issue is their dental needs. Before Mayor Bloomberg, we had dental clinics in schools. Mayor Bloomberg and I went to battle. He used to call me Trish. He could never get my name right. He would always call me Trish. And he said, Trish, we don't need the dental clinics. The children can go to the doctor. They can go to the dentist, whatever. And I said, we need to bring services to where children are. And he said, no, close them down. He was successful. I lost. Doctors and dentists have contacted my office and said the oral needs of children, particularly low-income children, it's pretty bad. We're seeing it in emergency rooms. And so my proposal this year to the City Council and this year to the Mayor is to restore those dental clinics, to bring services to where children are. And we're hoping that the City Council and the Mayor adopts that recommendation. We should not have to fight women to have access to our health care needs, such as cervical cancer screenings and mammograms and pap smears. And of course, all of this is easier when women serve as decision makers, and so this means empowering women to be representatives of our government. We simply must have more women voices in government. And consider this, 1,963 people have served in the United States Senate, and how many of them have been women? Anyone want to gather a guess? Anyone? Good, 46. 1,963. United States Senate, and only 46 have been women. To be sure, we're making progress, and all of you in this room are playing an important role in making this progress possible. But when it comes to fighting for more women representation in government, we cannot stop. We must not stop, and we will not stop until we get more women in government. And so that's why I'm sponsoring this series called Why She Ran. We're joining with Eleanor Roosevelt and other organizations, women organizations, to talk about my experience and the experience of other elected officials, including my very good close friend, my sister, the Speaker of the City Council, Melissa Macviverito, Congresswoman Maloney, Congresswoman Nydia Velasquez, and others, to talk about why she ran, why we stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight, and what were the consequences, and how we funded our campaigns. And issues such as, why when Hillary Clinton ran, why was there so much focus on her hair or cleavage as opposed to what she was saying? We've got to fight back. We've got to push back on these narratives. Our voices need to be in this discussion. We can't allow someone else to hijack the narrative. We've got to talk about issues that we care about, and families, women issues. Because at the end of the day, these are issues that inure to the benefit of all of us, to all families. And when women are part of government, I can talk about real estate, I can talk about economic development, I can talk about children, I can talk about school, I can talk about any issues with the best of them. And it's from a different perspective, but at the end of the day, it's from a woman's perspective. And ladies, and my progressive men, studies have indicated that women are much more effective than men in government. So the men didn't clap, I noticed that. It's okay, it's all right. And since we are here today at one of the city's top institutions, I know you want to talk about criminal justice and what we need to do to increase transparency and accountability. Let's begin with grand juries. Grand juries are an English tradition that goes back to the time of the Magna Carta, to King George. What the hell did King George do? I don't know, don't ask me. The British have abolished the system, but we still operate under a secret grand jury. The grand jury at that time, during the Magna Carta, the English tradition, was a very progressive idea. It was the only due process protection before a trial by ordeal. The first grand jury in the United States colonies was established in 1635 to indict corrupt agents of government. It was seen as a guard against the monarchy. Times have changed. The grand juries are in the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. That's your Fifth Amendment. That's going to be on the test. However, states are not required by the Constitution to utilize grand juries. Sometimes they use preliminary hearings. In New York, we have both preliminary hearings and grand juries, but most of the time we opt for grand juries. Only about half the states now use grand juries. It's not 1635 anymore, my friends, it's 2015. And as I stated earlier, even the United Kingdom, which created grand juries, has abolished them over 80 years ago. New York is stuck with a flawed system that is shrouded in unnecessary secrecy. And it's not absolute. The difference between New York and, let's say, Missouri, where Michael Brown was killed, that district attorney was allowed to talk about the case. Why? Because they have sunshine. We don't have sunshine in New York. So it's shrouded in secrecy. And the argument that you make, that some have made is, well, Tish, you want to protect the witnesses, you want to make sure that individuals cooperate, the criminal justice system is based upon the, public's cooperation, you want to maintain that relationship. We're not looking for names. You can redact the names. What we're looking for is accountability and transparency. And that's why I'm seeking to unveil the minutes of the Eric Garner grand jury case. But to be honest with you, it's beyond one case. It's beyond one district attorney. It's beyond one borough. It's about fundamental principles. Because I don't know about you. Basically, what we are saying is to one individual, one politician, trust me. You don't have to worry behind what happened behind closed doors. Just trust me. And I'm an elected official, and I don't trust a lot of elected officials. And so, because of the outdated grand jury laws in New York State, we still don't know what happened in that courtroom and why no one was indicted. And what I want you and other millions of Americans saw, what you and I saw on those two videotapes really does not match up with the failures to return an indictment. And the secrecy of these proceedings, they just breed suspicion. And it's about a government that works for the people, that exposing the truth outweighs any outdated modes or notions of secrecy. And only sunlight will restore the public's confidence in our justice system. Again, what we saw in Ferguson, Missouri, is the district attorney was able to unseal the grand jury minutes because Missouri has sunshine laws, and other jurisdictions all throughout this country have sunshine laws. And we are supposed to be the most progressive state, and the question is, what do we have to hide? So in New York, we have a petition to unseal the minutes because the grand jury process is not absolute. It is not sacrosanct. It should not be shrouded in secrecy or cloaked from the watchful eye of the public. Our initial petition was denied last month, but we are appealing that decision, and we are expediting our appeal. And yesterday, we learned that our motion to expedite the appeal to unseal the grand jury minutes was approved. And without this motion to expedite, it will likely take a year for this appeal to be heard, which is unacceptable. We believe that the public has the right to know what happened here behind closed doors. And it's important to know the district attorney of Staten Island argued the same position that we are now taking. He argued the same position. And his motion was granted. So when the judge denied our appeal, the district attorney said that none of the parties who were seeking access to the records had shown a compelling and particularized need. That's the standard for the release of the records. But I believe the decision is wrong. Because again, he argued the same position. His argument was granted. He was allowed to release certain information. The judge granted his petition. When we stepped forward to argue the same position, why wasn't our petition granted? The people have the right to know, and I, as the public advocate and others, have the right to demand transparency so that we can learn how to make our justice system better and more transparent to all. In order to have an effective criminal justice system, we need to trust that the system is fair. And I can think of no better compelling and particularized need than the need to show that the process was balanced and fair. As most of you know, we were in the forefront of body cameras. As the city council member, I was the first city council member in the city to put forth video cameras in public housing. I worked with then Commissioner Kelly and to put video cameras in my housing developments. And I've been in the forefront of technology for some time. And so there's an urgent need for police reform, transparency, and accountability measures, including body cameras, practicing non-lethal uses of force, de-escalation, improved police-community relations, looking at PSAs, public service areas, innovative technology in police departments across the country, looking at warning signals from CCRB to the district attorney's office. And we are seeing again and again police officers using completely unnecessary violence that results in tragedy that could have and should have been avoided. Now let me be clear, I have the utmost respect for our men and women who choose to serve their city, state, and country as police officers. I've got some family members, some siblings who are police officers. However, we must all work together to advance the dialogue about policing and build a society that respects lives. And we must examine better uses of non-lethal forces, such as tasers, mace, and de-escalation training, and longer mental health training support, and pellets. We need to make sure that all of our law enforcement professionals are trained to recognize unconscious bias, because we cannot ignore race and policing in our society and within our department, because we all know that it affects every aspect of our lives. We need to ensure that rookie officers are always paired with more senior officers, particularly in high-crime neighborhoods. And we need to examine our community policing and re-examine our broken windows policing. And I know that yesterday the City Council has introduced legislation to decriminalize low-level violations, and that is something that we are reviewing in the Office of Public Advocate. We need our police officers to be outfitted with body cameras, which ensure transparency and accountability by providing an objective record for police-civilian encounters. And so, by implementing body-worn cameras, it will also exonerate police officers and also provide an objective recording for any street cameras. And so now currently we have 60 body cameras, 60 officers wearing body cameras in the city of New York, and as soon as we assess this pilot program, we hope to expand it. And we are also working with NYPD to address the issue of domestic violence. We are also going to be having a forum at the Bar Association because the body cameras and technology raise a lot of issues. The law, as it relates to technology, has not caught up to date and is not, unfortunately, does not reflect the 21st century. And so there's issues such as storage, privacy, FOIL request, opting out, all of these issues and more. I am joining with the Bar Association to analyze these issues, and I invite all of you to that conference. We don't have a date yet, but we are working on it as we speak. And lastly, our office has been involved in the merger between Comcast and Time Warner. We are very much concerned about the merger of Comcast and Time Warner and the creation of a monopoly that would have control over content and price and data, and that would impact pricing, particularly as it relates to the middle class in the city of New York. Yesterday, we received a letter from I believe it was six United States senators who also have their concerns. And a number of advocates and legal advocates have also expressed concern with regards to the creation of this monopoly. And so we are watching this closely. We know that the PSC, the Public Service Commission of the State of New York, has to ultimately approve it. For New York, it will be a national merger, but in the state of New York, it will be subject to the approval of PSC. We testified before the PSC. We have joined with a number of emerging companies and all of these tech startups that have concerns with regards to the creation of a monopoly. And so we anxiously await their decision. Those are just some of the issues that we've worked on. And we continue to work on more issues as they arise in the city of New York. But we've been very active and very involved because I really believe that the power comes from the ground up and that government should be responsive to the power, and that government really is a tool for good, and government really can transform lives, and that it's an honorable and noble profession despite all of the indictments and people getting arrested. I entered into this industry because it improved my life, because I stand before you as the public advocate, as an attorney, but I stand before you as someone whose mother was once on public assistance, who grew up poor, but whose parents recognized the importance of education, and to recognize that education really is the key to overcome all isms, and that when you open up a school door, you close a prison door. And because government transformed my life, I've got an obligation and a duty to give back, and that's what I do each and every day. And so every day, I look forward to seeing what holds for the office of public advocate. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to open it up for Q&A. So there are two mics. There's Serena and Ismana. So if you have a question, kindly raise your hand and just perhaps stand up. They'll come to you with the mic.
Hi, I'm Chanel. I'm a grad student here, MPA. I'm a part of the MPA Student Association. Make sure you come out to our event tomorrow. Clap, clap, clap. We have an event tomorrow, so make sure you come out to that. Okay. Okay, so my question to you is that I agree with the minimum wage being raised
Yeah.
because the fast food industry is not the only one that will be affected.
Sure.
But many feel that middle-class individuals can't even survive on their wages now. So, like, how can we satisfy both parties?
So it's a great question. So clearly, there's been wage stagnation in our country. And it's unfortunate that Congress has not responded to the needs of Americans. And it's unfortunate that we've got two houses of government that have just been focusing on attacking one another in both parties, and that individuals right now are paralyzed by the party apparatus. That's unfortunate, because what we really need in this country is infrastructure improvements. We need a huge investment in infrastructure to put our roads and our bridges and our streets. We need to repair that and put people back to work. And I also believe in the power of the unions. The union, the labor movement, and the middle class are inextricably tied to one another. And what you have are business models in this country which basically ignore the labor movement, which is why if you look at right-to-work states are spreading all throughout this country, and the labor movement has dwindled. And we've lost jobs, they've gone south, we've lost manufacturing, we've lost factory workers, we've just lost, the newspaper guild is changing, most of them are bankrupt. There's a number of industries. There's reforms, particularly as it relates to teachers in the city of New York. There's an attack on UFT, attack on teachers. They want to create commodities of education, of public school system. So I think we've got a duty and a responsibility, both you and I, to talk about history, to talk about how government in the past, under FDR, under other presidents, came forth with big, bold ideas to put Americans back to work and to address poverty and income inequality. And it's shifting. You know, at one point in time, people hated unions, and supported business and all of that, and they believed in free enterprise and rugged individualism. It's really about all of us. It's the survival of all of us. And that's what the union stands for. That's what unions believe in. Collective power. And I just hope that when President Hillary Clinton goes into office, that we'll elect a Congress that respects her, that a Congress that puts their individual and political motives, puts the country first, and recognize that people are really struggling. All you have to do is travel the South, and you'll see it. And these people work in Walmart, and they rely on public assistance, and they work in a lot of these stores. They're being underpaid. It breaks your heart what's happening. And I just believe in the exceptionalism of America. And I look forward to when she takes office. I also, at the same time, love Elizabeth Warren. Yes. And, I know it doesn't look like we're gonna have a primary. I'm hoping that, I'm confident that the Secretary of State, our former senator, will address a lot of and embrace a number of these progressive ideas to move our country forward.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Benedicta. Thanks for coming. My question is that, are there any specific racial or gender discrimination that you faced as you progressed in your profession, and what advice would you give young women?
So I've, experienced the sting of racism and sexism. I remember walking into court and people saying, what's your case number? Yeah. I remember, to this day, I'll walk into a meeting and people, will think I'm the help or whatever. It happens, but it can't affect you. You just can't get caught up in that. Because at the end of the day, I'll always remember, one time when I was in court, and then I remember two individuals who were arrested. They said, "Oh, we don't want you to be the lawyer. We don't want you." And I said, "Okay, fine. I'm busy. I don't need you to." And then I stood up and I dismissed 5 cases, one after one after one after one. And all of a sudden they were like, "Oh, we want you to be the lawyer." I was like, "No, I'm too busy for you." All you got to do is show them your brilliance, and show them that deep within your DNA is the ability to make things happen just by your presence alone. And when you walk into a room, own it. Just own it. But always don't allow anyone else to define you. Don't allow anyone to take anything from you. Just recognize the greatness that lies within and be at peace. And every now and then laugh. Just laugh and dance with wild abandon and feel good. So that's why if you see me in Fort Greene, Clinton Hill, Prospect Heights, Crown Heights, shout out my old district. People see me every day, ponytail, sneakers, jeans. They're like, "Aren't you the public advocate?" So I have security out here. I try to lose them and just be myself. That's it. And just get caught up with people. That's it.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
First off, thank you for that discussion.
Thank you.
I'm actually a student ambassador from another college that's getting ready to finish, and I'm getting ready to get into, social to, artistic views. And my question was, how are we able to change individuals socially and mentally through leadership in the public sector?
So it's having these vibrant dialogues and discussions about issues. And oftentimes, people may disagree with you. You've got to find common ground and just work on common ground. Again, my city council district is a very artsy district. And we used to use art as a means for social change and arts as a means to bring people together to discuss issues. And people would express themselves through art, through dance, through acting. I don't know, 2 weeks ago there was they have, I forget what it's called, where the media makes fun of elected officials in a circle. And they showed a video of me when I was a city council member dancing. And I danced in my former district to raise funds for programs that needed some resources. And I did my best Beyonce imitation. And it was on YouTube. And as a result of that, people laughing, and they let their guards down. They realized that I was approachable. They realized that they had certain concepts or stereotypes about who I was, this angry black woman. And the reality is, there's nothing further than from the truth. During the campaign, I was accused of being an angry black woman, just like our First Lady was often accused of being an angry black woman. And you gotta, confront that, but also let people see your warmth, and let people know that being angry about poverty, about children starving, about homelessness, about Dasani Coates, the young lady who I brought up to my inauguration, who had been in an awful shelter, you should be angry about that. You shouldn't get comfortable with that. You shouldn't get used to that. You should get emotional about that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Showing your emotion through art or otherwise, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But then also, once you get past that, just having discussions. Communication really is your best friend. The ability to communicate your feelings and communicate the issues and articulate the issues in a way where someone else can understand that and not be offended.
Hi,
Hi.
Ms. James. My name is Rihanna. I am the VP of the Sentinel, the school newspaper. I'm looking at you guys because I need you guys to join. And but as a graduate of a CUNY institution, what are some pointers you have for CUNY students who hope to travel in the same public sector or the political path as you?
Volunteer. We've got there's a number of volunteer opportunities in city council offices, in the mayor's office, in the office of public advocate. In every governmental office, there's opportunities to volunteer. In my old office, in the AG's office, there's opportunities to volunteer. There's a wide range of, listen, we've resolved 10,000 complaints. It requires bodies, individuals to handle the phones. Constituents call every day with complaints, from I don't have any food, to I was a victim of domestic violence, to my landlords are harassing me, to seniors. We get a lot of seniors who are just lonely, who just want to talk. No complaint at all. They're just by themselves and they're lonely. And they come into our office and they just sit, just to talk about nothing. We get a lot of that. We got individuals who are disabled, who basically have a difficult time accessing government services. Complaints range from A to Z. There are always volunteer positions in my office and in every other office. You have the Department of Consumer Affairs. I was out with the Department of Consumer Affairs during tax season. We were calling individuals to have them enroll for the tax credit, child care tax credit, and the earned income tax credit. And so we asked volunteers to come to man the phones. Hundreds came. Last week, we asked volunteers to come to man the phones, to call people, to ask individuals who were eligible for child care why they had not enrolled their child. We got hundreds of people. in every borough. And usually we do an event like once a month with the mayor's office, asking for volunteers. We're going to be asking for volunteers. I know tomorrow, Earth Day, the mayor asked for volunteers to plant bulbs all around the city, asking for volunteers this Sunday to help victims of Sandy. We're still, again, struggling. Volunteer. How about this? Volunteers for the shelter to help children do their homework. Volunteer at the shelter to read a child a book. Volunteer at some of these foster care agencies where moms just have a difficult time coping and they just want a break. How about this? A little girl came to my office when I was a member of the city council. She was a prostitute. She was 15. I'm not talking any third world country, I'm talking Brooklyn. And she wanted out. She wanted to get away from a pimp. She couldn't tell anybody. She wanted to come to me because she saw me somewhere. Helping her. There are opportunities like that every day. Or, little girl, pregnant. Doesn't want to tell her parents. Doesn't know where to go. Scared. A lot of opportunities out there. All you got to do is step forward and say, I want to help.
Final question.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Vega. I'm an undergrad. Thank you for your speech. So I have a question. Who would I be able to contact if I feel like my landlord has like a false permit?
Great. Right up our aisle. Me.
Yeah. Because I feel like he's trying to do construction under inhumane ways, because he wants to rearrange the bathroom and the kitchen but that takes like 2 months. And so what am I supposed to eat? I have a 1-year-old asbestos. You know, one of my neighbors said a rat jumped out and bit her in her hand. So I just feel like that permit that he has, like he shouldn't be doing construction while we're living there
You're not,
for 2
he's not
months.
supposed to.
So
So,
how do I fight that?
Eves, Eves, give her a card so we can talk to her tomorrow. We're going to have one of the attorneys talk to her. This is what we do. Thank you, guys.